let's call this regular board meeting and executive session of the Silver Falls School District to order. Please note attendance. Okay. Everybody join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion for approval and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next up are our student representatives, Larissa Kesh and Olivia Myers.
Okay, good evening everyone. The high school's had a fun-filled and busy month since Larissa and I last spoke to you. Let's start off with what has been happening in sports.
First off, we have our boys soccer, and their record is 7-1. The next home game is October 9th versus McKay at 7 p.m.
Girls have a record of 2-4 with one game that was a tie. Their next home game is October 10th versus West Albany at 7 o'clock.
We have the boys football, and their record is 6-0. Their next home game is October 19th versus McKay at 7 p.m.
Volleyball has a record of 10-8. Their next home match is October 16th versus Crescent Valley at 6 o'clock.
And then finishing off the sports, we have cross country, and their next meet is October 10th, the Corvallis Invite held at the Corvallis High School.
Silverton High School's homecoming was September 28th. It was a great success. The week leading up to homecoming set the tone for the main event, the dance. Each class decorated their halls with their assigned Pixar movie theme. The freshmen's theme was Cars, the sophomores had Monsters, Inc., the juniors decorated their halls in the spirit of the movie A Bug's Life, and the seniors' theme was Finding Nemo. All the classes went above and beyond with their decorations, and the hallways truly looked magical.
The dress-up days were a blast, with the students showing their goofy and creative sides. The parade and future Fox Fair took a lot of planning and hard work, but with the assistance of many, it went smoothly. We couldn't have done it without the support and help from the Silverton community. The football team won our homecoming game against Corvallis, 40-20. The bonfire after the football game was filled with fun, and everyone attending was safe thanks to the Silverton Fire Department and local fire explorers. The next night, we had a successful homecoming dance.
Silverton High School had its first General Council meeting last Thursday. General Council is a group of representatives from all the freshmen, sophomore, junior, and senior AGs, as well as every class's officers and ASB representatives. Representatives from activities, sports, and clubs joined the meeting as well. The council's goal is to better unite Silverton High School and improve it. The students were able to discuss their thoughts on events such as homecoming and give suggestions about what they want to see in the school.
Interact Club is one of Silverton High School's most student-based clubs. Its goal is to provide opportunities for young adults to improve leadership skills and develop integrity. The students are dedicated to doing service for others. The presidents of the club say that their biggest goal this year is to do the Interact Club outreach to younger students in the K-8 district, and they are also focusing on getting new members and motivating all the members of Interact to continue attending meetings and contributing to the cause. The teacher advisors of this club are Miss Morgan and Mrs. Litz.
So Silverton High School has a really cool project going on. It's called Project Unified, and it's an extension group that started last year. The program pairs students with and without special needs together to complete planned activities, such as science experiments and cooking opportunities. The goal of this program is to create a more unified school environment that creates relationships that extend further than just the classroom.
The next exciting event that is coming up at the high school is Tree of Giving. Tree of Giving is a way for the high school to give back to the community. High school students and staff raise money to buy gifts for family in the Silverton area that are struggling financially and need help purchasing gifts for their family during the holiday season. Some of the activities that we do to raise money are matcha volleyball, fall festival, cardboard boat races, and Super Mario Brothers tournament.
This Wednesday is an exciting and busy day at the high school. The freshmen have the opportunity to tour the OSU campus. The sophomores have a chance to take the PSAT. The juniors have the option to take the ASVAB. The seniors can attend a variety of workshops that will help them complete their extended application project. That's all we have for you tonight, so thank you for your time and have a great evening.
All right, thank you. Good report. Oh, yeah, please. Okay, now is our first opportunity for public comment. Would anybody like to come up and address the board? Yeah, please, they're well. See, she's coming first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, did you get the script?
Oh, yes. Sorry, let me read this first.
Oh, sure.
Okay, statement to share during the beginning of public comment. We are glad you are here and welcome you to address the board at this time with your ideas, opinions, questions, concerns, or compliments. Please be certain to sign in before you present. Remember that we all model the way for our students, and we ask that you share your thoughts in a respectful way. The board's role during public comment is to listen. Rarely will you get an immediate response to information. If there is a follow-up necessary, we will direct our superintendent to do that. In order to ensure equity among speakers, the board will limit remarks to 3 minutes per individual. If a group of 3 or more wishes to appoint a representative to speak on its behalf, the board will extend the time for remarks to 5 minutes. A second public comment will occur later in the agenda, specific to discussion and action items of this meeting. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
We just wanted to check back in with you guys in regard to our the last meeting when we presented an idea for Labor Management Committee with you. And so obviously you may not be able to answer that right now, but we just wanted to check back in and see if you guys had an opportunity to do some consideration and some research of your own. We hadn't heard anything back from you officially, so we just wanted to see if you had time to consider and had any thoughts on that proposal. And then in second to that, as Mr. Belando expressed at the last meeting, we already have a Labor Management Committee formed, which is our forum, which meets 4 times a year. And what might be a simpler solution to the idea of board members being able to hear directly from teachers would be, we'd like to invite you guys to join us at our forum meetings. Like I said, they happen 4 times a year. They're at 4 o'clock at the district office. If a couple of you wanted to come to each of those, I think that would be a great opportunity for you to be present during those discussions and hear directly from teachers at each building. And just to hear as well from the administration, and just an environment where everybody is able to share what's going on, and you can get kind of that direct contact in what seems to be a prescribed method, a method that's approved. And so those dates are October 15th, December 3rd, February 4th, and April 1st. And we would love to see any or all of you there. So,
Good suggestion.
yeah. Okay, awesome. And if you have any other thoughts about our previous proposals, please just let us know.
Okay, we'll do
Okay,
it.
all right,
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
All right, anybody else think you want to come up? Yeah. Okay, go ahead and sign in and stick your name.
You bet, you bet. Thank you for taking the time to hear me. My name is Keith Haugen, by way of introduction. I've lived here in Silverton for 11 years. I know several of you on the board here. For those of you who don't, I'm a physician up at the hospital. I've been the medical director of the inpatient medicine service since its inception 11 years ago. I'm the immediate past president of the medical staff, and I sit on the Legacy Medical Center board of directors. I'm here to talk about music, not medicine. I have 4 children in this community, 1 at each of the 4 schools. We do a lot of driving. I have a freshman at the high school, 7th grader at the middle school, a 5th grader at Frost, and a 2nd grader at Twain. Music is something that's fairly foundational in our family. My story is I started playing in 5th grade. You have all heard grade school and middle school bands play. They're hard to listen to, and mine was no exception. Something clicked though after about 2 years, and in 7th grade, things changed in my life. And I grew up in Salem. The school I went to was Sprague. That had, at the time, one of the top-notch music programs in the state, and I had the opportunity as a freshman to play in one of the top jazz bands in the state. Of those 20 kids in that jazz band, 5 of them are professional musicians. Another 2 or 3 went to college on a scholarship for music, and then countless others in the marching band and the other programs had their lives affected. I want to start off by saying this is a really frustrating situation that all of us are in. I know everybody in this room is acting in good faith. I know you all have all of our children's best interests at heart, and I wish it was different. I wish we didn't have to talk about trade-offs and this kind of thing. I see it as a ripple effect, a consequence of our community not supporting us adequately, supporting our children adequately. I wish it was different. Music at the middle school and grade school level is different than most of the other arts and things in that it's really a program. To have a regular top-notch music program at the high school level, you have to have a critical mass of kids showing up in 9th grade with a skill set. They can't show up in 9th grade not being able to play and develop a program. It's more similar to a competitive athletic program than it is to other arts in that sense. Music was an issue to the point that when we moved here, it was one of the things I was concerned about raising my family here. Is it going to be strong enough? We have the beginnings of a strong music program here. We have the seeds planted, and I'm very excited about where it was going. With the cuts and the changes that have happened at the middle school here in town, at the grade school in town, I'm concerned. I don't have an answer. I know it's hard. I know, but I just want you to know that the costs are real. This is something that in my family has actually caused us, for the first time in 11 years, to think, is this something we can deal with? This isn't something I can supplement. I can't give my kids music lessons and replace an entire program. I can do that with art or Spanish or an athletic event or anything like that. I can't fix this for my own kids here. I really need the community to do this, to make that work. And I think we're losing opportunities for lots of other kids outside of my family as well. I'm out of time, so that's what I said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Good evening, I'm Lainey Piper. I'm happy to be back and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you a little bit of follow-up from the last time I got the chance to speak. A couple months ago, I brought my daughter Jasmine in, and she recently graduated from Silverton High School. And I just wanted to share with you her successes because of the experiences that she had in our district. She's at Brigham Young University, Idaho, and she made it into the music program. She passed her theory test so she could go right into the program and not have to take any remedial theory. She made the cuts for the choir that she wanted to get into, and she did, have to do callbacks. Jasmine's experience here is different than what my other children will be getting. At 5th grade, she started playing the clarinet. Even before then, actually, she had a solo in Miss Elliott's music programs at Eugene Field. Those wonderful programs that we all loved. But it started then. And then band in 5th grade, which we don't have that now. And then her amazing opportunities at the high school level in band and choir, having both groups be competitive at the state level. All of the sight reading experiences that she had, that practice, helped her tremendously when she went to audition for, at the college level. I'm so grateful for the experiences that she had here, that Silverton provided for her, that have now springboarded her into this amazing university experience to study music. My 3 boys are at Community Roots. And right now, because of some changes and cuts that happened at the middle school, they are not able to have music. My twins, who are 12, almost 13, have had 2 years of band, And this year they aren't in band because, again, because of some schedule changes that happened at the middle school. And my little Emerson, who is a first grader, fortunately, we have another lower elementary school teacher who's helping provide some music for him so he can have some singing time. He secretly told me that he loves music and he didn't want his brothers to know that he likes to sing, but he told me. And I'm so very excited about the children's choir that we have. You can tell right away just by the numbers that we have 69 children registered. We had so many that we split it into two choirs. There is a demand. There is a need here in Silverton. People want music, and they want it for the younger kids because the majority of those that have registered for our children's choir are young, K through 3, and then up into the middle school. Thank you again for the chance to speak. I just hope that you'll know and feel my heart and love and passion for music, and I hope and pray that that as you hear more testimonies of music and wanting it, that you will do everything you possibly can to please bring back what we had before so that my other children can have the same opportunities that my senior Jasmine had. And thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, very good. We'll move on. Okay, first up is our discussion items. First one is a proposed revision of policies GCBDA and GDBDA, family medical leave, and policy GCBDD, GDBDD, sick time, and then policy BBB, board elections. And then all these are the first reading. Okay, does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
I just had a question, that when we received the sick time, GCBDD/GDBDD.
You don't have to
It's hard
read
to
it.
say G as in George, D as in dog. We received, on that one it said, in the third paragraph, the second one is really a sentence, but the third grouping of words below, there was a parenthesis, or it says, so all employees accrue sick time, ? Are you front-loading 40 hours for all full-time employees? What about substitutes and coaches? Is that added into this?
No, that was a working comment that should not have been included.
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
But that was actually the question, which is why this was a on-hold policy, because we needed to clarify some information specific to that question.
Oh,
That's been
okay.
clarified, so by accident it was left in there.
Okay.
We actually removed it the next day.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I just thought that's not appropriate to have in
Sure.
a question, so I wanted to get rid of that. Okay, and that's all I had for the two policies for sure.
Catch. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Next item is the budget committee vacancies. The names of the applicants and the process for selection. We got three members whose terms have expired, and we've got all three are up and willing to serve again, but we also have more applicants too. And do you want to outline the process for this?
Yes, just a brief reminder, over the summertime, because your policy requires that you actually fill your budget committee vacancies by your September regular session, but since you had a board member selection at that time, you chose to postpone it to November. So with that said, the applications were due for budget committee members for the 3 zones. That terms were up for Melissa Seifert-Briggs, Jacob Klockfelter, and Kurt Metzger. And we accepted applications for a few weeks through the 1st of October, the 3rd of October. So by the 3rd of October, you have now received 7 applications for the 3 positions. You also received, included within those 7 are the 3 applications from the incumbent budget committee members. So you have a decision to make by your November work session, or excuse me, regular session, to select your 3 new budget committee members. Your policy does state that budget committee members can request to be reappointed. And your policy also says that the board can choose to reappoint budget committee members for as many terms as you deem appropriate, but it does use a phrase, usual practice will be 2 terms. And so with that said, you have 2 budget committee members in Melissa Cipher-Briggs and Kurt Metzger, who are finishing their 2nd term as budget committee members. Jacob Clodfelter finished his 1st term. I think it's also fair to recognize that the practice of the board in the past has been to reappoint budget committee members for multiple terms. I mean, you have some folks serving 4 or 5 terms. And so you have a month to make a decision about what 3 budget committee members, or what 3 people you would like on your budget committee moving forward.
Okay. So last time we had interviews and then we voted. We had interviews during the work session, I believe. Is that correct? And then we voted during regular session. During the next
Correct.
session.
Yes.
I suppose we could duplicate that process. I mean, we could just, we are authorized to just reappoint them, but I don't think that would be fair to the new applicants. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Should we just duplicate the process we used last time? Seemed to work.
I think it seemed to work, and it allowed not only the people who wanted to, the incumbents to be placed on the budget committee again, but clearly we have several people who would like to apply for it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to give opportunity to everyone to sell themselves and tell us about them and why they want to be on the budget committee. And it's good to put a face to a name as well. I think in-person contact is a little more telling than a sheet of paper, in my opinion. So I thought it went smoothly, and it was successful.
It worked.
Yeah.
Andy, can you, I don't recall the process specifically. I mean, we gave them each like 5 minutes and some Q&A.
Yeah, I
How did
don't
that
recall if
go?
it was 5 minutes or 3 minutes or what, but yeah, you gave a select number of minutes for each budget committee applicants. You actually asked them to attend the meeting.
Yeah.
And they essentially answered the question, why do you want to be a budget committee member? And you had that opportunity as a board to listen, to review their applications, and then 2 weeks later at your regular session, you made the selection. You went through I will share this memo with you again, but it's a voting process that allows each candidate to be considered equally based upon the vote that you cast, the motion that you make and the vote that you cast. So with that said, you could surely have your applicants attend your October 23rd work session. And then that would give you sufficient time, I think, to make a selection in November. The caveat that I'll give to that, Mr. Chairman, is that you have 3 topics already slated for your October 23rd session that will take some time. I think this one clearly is time sensitive, but will also take some time. So I think the wishes of the board have to be considered when you talk about how many topics that you want to have at your work session. So keeping this one in mind, you also have asked that we share data point information and additional information on educational equity and what that could look like. Last time that was quite a conversational topic, and I think that will take some more time. We've also identified the additional parking at Silverton High School as a topic, and updates to each of you on Western Avenue and Grant Street, what that looks like over there. That may take a little time. You've also asked that you get an update on food service funding and what that looks like for next year. So you could surely have all 4 topics, but again, I'm only putting this out there because you as a board have been attentive to this in the past. This could be 3-hour work session, maybe longer, if you have all 4 of these topics.
Right. Can we, any of those 3 topics, can we push it off to the next work session? Do you think that might?
I'm going to turn to Steve a little bit for the food service. That one I think is kind of time sensitive because we'd like to get that out there. I think the Western Avenue and additional parking at Silverton High School is more of a information for you and an opportunity to discuss what that could look like, especially related to a joint city council school board meeting in the future. I think that one could be put off.
Okay.
And educational equity.
Let's keep
that one's
moving on
also
now.
somewhat time sensitive. You
Yeah.
and Jennifer have done a lot of nice work on coming up with a draft definition, and we are putting some data together for you.
Right.
So maybe we just put off the additional parking at this time.
It sounds like a confusing, the parking issue and all the zoning and all that. Sounds rather confusing. That's gonna go on for a while. I think that's gonna, I don't think we should get started on that until we can keep going at it. So, I think we should keep going with the things we got going, and if we can put that off for 1 month, anybody have a problem with that?
No, that sounds good.
Okay, that could be a long discussion, so let's move that back and put in some interviews there.
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Set it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next up are some public engagement opportunities for the strategic, for the new strategic visioning document. It's going to be a busy night. So busy, at least October 16th. Doggone, who's our consultant? What was his name?
Jerry Colonna.
Jerry Colonna, yeah. He gave us a good presentation at the last work session, and he scheduled up some community forums so we can get public input on that. And can you, Andy, do you want to outline that? How is this where we have selected people from various groups in the community to come in and listen, and the public to engage?
We actually have both scheduled.
Okay.
The community forums are for anyone in the community.
Okay.
And so we hold 3, 2 on the first night, 1 at Butte Creek School beginning at 5, 1 at Central House School beginning at 7, and then the next evening on the 17th at 6 o'clock at Silverton Middle School. Over the course of the same 2 days, we have 12 focus groups, which will be meeting for 75 minutes each throughout each of the 2 days at the school district office. Those invitations have been sent out. We've received quite a healthy response from community members, and we've invited folks from not only across the school district. Again, keep in mind that the city of Silverton is a geographic portion, but we have a very large school district, so all across the district representing different demographics of the school district, and also representing quite a variety of folks. Business community, religious community. We have a session up at the senior center, at students, classified staff, licensed staff, administrators, just a number of different groups from across the community.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a very healthy response based upon past experience.
Yeah. You shared that list of community stakeholders at our last work session. Was there any notable changes from this list to last time? Okay, and just for the community, so the stated times here in the agenda, that's for the time for anybody from the community to come
Correct.
forward and sit and say their piece.
And we did put cards at the back table that have each of these. We're also putting this information on the district website and getting the information out word of mouth as much as anything on social media, et cetera.
Anybody else got any input?
I have a quick question. I noticed on the letter that was sent out to the people who were selected to be attending the 2-day 75-minute forums, I guess, were during the week, early in the morning. Did you get a healthy response from that?
At this point, I haven't
They were-
checked the list recently.
On early work days, it was on a Tuesday, Wednesday from...
Yeah, and we do understand that it may be a challenge for some folks to do it, but we also asked, like in the case of, let's say, community members or parents, we asked principals to assist by providing multiple names so that we could get representation of that group. I can't say with certainty this time, but last time each one of the groups were fully, there was full group of people.
Great. Okay.
And
Look forward
we're
to
targeting
hearing about
15 to 20 people each group.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
15 to 20 people each group.
Each group. Okay, great. I'll look forward to hearing about it. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Next item is the school board work sessions at the rural schools. We've got 3 of them for this year. November 26th at Victor Point, January 28th at Prattam and April 22nd at Scotts Mills, and that's where we'll have the work sessions. They're at 7 p.m. every night. Anybody got any input about those? I know they were popular last year. I'm sure glad you did them, and I think certainly haven't heard anything negative.
What's nice about those, it really incentivizes those that live around those schools because it's close, it's easy to come and participate. And I think we've gotten a lot out of that. So it has a chance to bring folks that normally may not participate, like in this evening's meeting, because they live far out to participate. And it's nice to hear the perspective point of view. Yeah, so I'm all for it.
Well, and it also gives us the opportunity to visit the schools, which a lot of us don't have the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to go out and see the schools and, be a part of that community out there and get to meet, parents and families who, like Ron said, who don't normally get here. So that's another positive aspect to implementing it last year. So it's a good choice.
Anybody else? Okay. Other items. Shelley, you had a couple things you wanted to
I just
bring
have
up.
a couple, yeah,
Yeah.
I do, thanks so much.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about tonight was, I know that just a little bit ago, we were talking about, it quickly came up, or we talked about it quickly, was the Grant Street, Western Street discussion. There was quite a bit of discussion in the community this past week about the safety of Western Street and children walking from school and Grant Street, and lots of questions about that area, which is not new to us for sure. But what I wanted to do, what got me thinking was we haven't scheduled our annual City Council School District meeting, our annual meeting. And I thought this would be a good time to maybe direct our superintendent to come up with some dates to meet with our city council and get back to us. And then we can, and I thought that the Western Street, Grant Street would be a good topic to talk with our city council with. And then the safe routes to school. And another topic just came to mind was if the city was going to request a bond to build, a new city center of any kind or city hall. So I have a lot of questions that I thought that it would be important for us to discuss with the city council as a school district and working with them to make sure we're all on the same page. So that was my first topic.
Okay. I just got a
any
quick
response?
yeah,
Sure.
on that, just on that,
Yeah.
on the Grant Street
Yeah.
over there.
Mhm.
It sounds like there's just what little bit I've spoken with Andy about. There's a lot of information to gather, and I think we need to have our work session so we can kind of as a board gather it all and process
Sure.
it, so we can kind of, because there's a lot of competing issues out there.
There
So
is.
we got to try to figure out so we can
Correct.
have a productive meeting with them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and when I sent the question to Andy, he gave quite a bit of detailed information
Yeah.
about what we do need to do.
Yeah, it's
And I'll be sharing that with the community as well, that way.
confusing.
Maybe some of the questions that we answered will be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great, okay.
Next.
So my next thing, I would like to get the support from the board to direct our superintendent to possibly come back with dates at our next meeting to meet with our city council, or even our November meeting would be fine. And then we can plan that, or make a
Yeah, I think
decision on
maybe
the
just-
date. What do you think about that?
I don't know, is there typically a time of year we meet with them?
Right,
Has
and
it been-
that's, yeah.
Not generally. I think it just, in a couple of years,
Yeah.
you met twice in the past. The board has asked us just be on the annual meeting.
Mhm.
My suggestion would be to wait, of course, until after the election. There are some city council positions that are up for election. And Tom, I think you have a good point. I think you deserve the opportunity to discuss a variety of things, both from Lauren Stanley's perspective and my
Yes.
perspective about what that looks like, some history related to that from a school district perspective. So if I were to, I guess, make a gauge or a guess, January, February, possibly.
I'm thinking
I
after
was
this.
thinking that too, in case there's
Yeah.
changes after the election, they wouldn't take office till January.
I And I can surely reach out to the city manager and Mayor Palmer and find out what that looks like. And again, we have to wait till after the election to see what options they have.
Yeah.
And so if there's interest by the board, we'll see if there's interest by the city council.
Yeah, that's an important topic. I mean, I think it's a perfect reason to have that meeting. Great.
The second thing I wanted to talk about was, and I've brought this up before, I just think it's really important. When Lauren Stanley came and talked to us last December, I just remember him really being firm about getting a facilities committee together this fall. And I realize that there is some studies being done with the buildings, and that we're waiting for them to come in, was that March or April, I'm thinking?
The assessments will be completed by March.
By March,
That way the committee will have some information to be able to
Right.
use.
So I thought it would be proactive to maybe direct our superintendent to start creating that committee now, and getting a feeling of who would want to be on that committee. And that way, if it's created now, they have an opportunity to learn history about what's been done or what hasn't been done with the facilities. And I think Lauren Stanley would be a perfect person to help with that. And that way, when the assessments do come back in the spring, they're not just starting the process. Because if you're just starting the process, well, I mean, if we get the assessments back in March and then we get a facilities committee together, that could be May, and then we've kind of lost an opportunity for a whole year to allow the committee to start talking about it, start researching it, start learning about what has been done in the past and what potentially needs to be done. So I'm just looking at it proactively just to get it started and get the committee together. And then when those assessments come in, they'll have a better understanding of what they're reading or what's being presented to them. That's just my thought.
So I know we've got some grant money cut to help pay for this, to help to pay for the facilitation of it. So the report should come in March.
That hasn't been determined specifically yet. We have to use it prior to the end of this school year. I believe we'll have them completed by March. We have a contractor that we have contacted, and we're going to piggyback on a contract from a metro area school district to be able to utilize that contractor in our school district, which will save us some money.
Sure.
And it will likely take a few months for that to occur.
Yeah.
So I'm conservatively thinking it will be March.
And then do you have a rough idea when will we be convening the committee, long range committee?
At this point, beginning in the spring, and having the committee established by the spring, so shortly after spring break, and having the committee work through the spring and work through the 2019-20 school year. Long Range Facility Planning Committee is it's a pretty significant process. In the past, it's taken 6, 10, 12 months to really complete, come up with recommendations. And knowing that the facility assessment is one piece of information that the committee will review, I think it's up to you as a board. If you want me to form the committee now, we could surely do that. I don't know what we would have the committee do until we begin to formulate the committee later in the year.
I would suggest wait until after the first of the year to form the committee, just because, well, for one thing, we're coming on to the holidays, and they're going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
People might be a little more willing to serve on that committee once we get past that and into the new year, and schedules may be open a little bit. And I don't see much point in having the committee meet before the building assessments are completed, because that's going to be a major part of what they're going to be looking at.
Well, one of the challenges with this is not just the assessment. I think there is merit to understanding the backlog that we already know about. We could spend weeks and months talking about what we already know. But I do agree, we should wait until after.
Your strategic planning process will be well underway. I believe your facility committee has to have your established plan in order to help set some direction. That'll give some direction for the next 5 years. I'll share some additional information related to grade configuration in 2 of your schools. I think some additional conversation needs to occur about that at Mark Twain and Robert Frost schools. And so there are some additional things to I think, include with any kind of long-range facility planning committee. Your enrollment work group has lots of great information that will be included within the facility planning group. And I also will remind the board that this is the task that we need to secure a consultant for. It's not something that I'm comfortable leading. We've had consultants in the past, and to be able to adequately, and I think serve the public interest, you bring specialists in who know how to operate the intricacies of it. And so securing a consultant is really going to be a pretty pivotal piece of this. And that will take a couple of months to do too.
When was the last time you did one?
Last long-range facility planning committee was 2013-14.
And just out of curiosity, what became of that plan? I mean, did we do anything specifically because of it? Did we not?
Yeah, the last 2 bond elections were
So that just-
recommendations from that.
that's what bond-
From that, and yeah, there were multiple recommendations made. And I think it's fair to say too that over the course, well, since the school district has been established, there have been, I think, four long-range facility planning committees, and of course they were pre-high school or pre-unification committees as well. And generally speaking, this district has had a long-range planning committee every 4 to 5 years for a variety of reasons. So you would be on track to be about the same pace.
I would think if you would put the committee together like in January and they could maybe even meet in February, for background
I was
stuff, things
just
like
gonna-
that.
Yeah.
If the assessments were going to be done.
Sure.
I was just going to say that. Thanks for
And
saying
Andy,
that.
you mentioned talking to us about Mark Twain and Robert Frost. What's your vision for timing on that discussion?
Well, if it's all right with you, Mr. Chair, that was part of my report this evening, but if I could do it right now, that I could surely address that. That we've actually begun discussion, if you recall, that one of the goals that you have as a board is related to educational equity, and I used that as a guide for one of my professional goals for the year related to establishing different variables and data sets for measuring educational equity within the school district based upon your definition. But one of the statements that I have, one of the sub goals is, I'll just read it out loud, appraise the efficacy of converting Mark Twain Elementary School and Robert Frost School to K-5 grade configurations, submit recommendations to the board by June of 2019. And so with that said, I think there is some very good and timely conversation to be had about grade configuration of those schools based upon a variety of not only reasons of equity, but of instructional reasons and a number of others that we can surely do. I bring it to your attention this evening because I've initiated that conversation with district administrators, and I've actually had a meeting today with principals Leslie Roach and Greg Kotz of Mark Twain and Robert Frost to begin conversation with their staff members just to seek information, to say, here are some problems that could be addressed or solved with this, what are some other possible issues that could be addressed with this, and what does that look like? So going back to your question, Jennifer, if there was a decision to be made about grade configuration, I believe the sooner that decision could be made, the better. So June of 2019 would be maybe the end of that recommendation. I think it would be wise if that could be done by winter or spring at the latest, because once that decision is made by the board, that would be your decision, you would have to take adequate time to have a task force to decide what does that mean. So we'd be talking about attendance boundary changes, we'd be talking about possible facility improvements or changes, and configuring possibly even changes to programs. What does that mean for special ed, for ELL, for all of our programs? So June at the latest, my preference would be by the middle of winter time, and then you would have to take potentially up to the next year. I anticipate this would be a year and a half plus process. So the earliest that those two schools could open as K-5 schools would be the fall of 2020.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Good question. Okay. All right, next up, administrator and staff reports. Andy, you got some things to share with us about enrollment. Again, you're up.
I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
You've received, each one of you have received the October 1 enrollment information. I think it's really important that I highlight a couple of items on that report. We'll gladly answer any questions you may have. We are experiencing a small, very modest amount of growth in the school district, or actually district-wide, we're up 1%. Enrollment as of October 1st was 3,977 students. Last year at this time it was 3,942 students. Our largest jumps actually occurred at at Robert Frost and Silverton Middle School. We actually saw a decrease in enrollment at Mark Twain. And if you recall from your enrollment work group, there was even some anticipation that we'd see a drop in kindergarten numbers over the next few years simply because of the birth rate over about 5 or 6 years ago, where we were dropping off at that time. So with all of that said, your overall enrollment is up 1%. Elementary enrollment is essentially flat, 2642 students last year, 2645 students this year. And the high school has increased by about 2.5%. So it's at 1332 currently, and it's at 1,300 students at this time last year. A couple of things that may have contributed to that. First of all, you have a very large freshman class and a very large sophomore class at 345 and 349. We did have a number of move-ins to Silverton High School over the summertime, and we experienced some bubble increases at a couple of locations within the district as well. Scotts Mills is a perfect example. We have 26 students down in kindergarten at Scotts Mills. We anticipated 17. Those are all move-ins over the summertime to the community of Scotts Mills, which is a good thing. Their enrollment remains about the same, but that's actually a good thing and very promising for enrollment growth in the future. So Silverton High School is up about 2.5%, and we are maintaining a range of 5 to 7% transfers. In fact, I think we have denied more transfers, student transfers, some other districts this year than what we've denied in the past. Some of our schools were denying transfers last spring because they knew they were full. Again, as a reminder, we still have some capacity in this school district, but our transfers allow us to really control the number of kids that we have to be met by the staffing that we have and the programs that we have within the school district. As an example, Central House School could hold a couple hundred students, but it's about 180 students, and Dustin Meany does a nice job of keeping it to that because that's what the staffing allows at that program, or at that school. Silvercrest has about 140 students. They could hold nearly 200 students up there as well, and we're working hard to do what we can to get more students enrolled in Silvercrest schools because we have capacity at that school. Scotts Mills is another example of that. Otherwise, the Mark Twain is at or near capacity. The middle school is close, and Robert Frost is also close as well. The uniqueness about Robert Frost, with its current enrollment at 425, we've actually had near 500 students in that school in the past, but because of the number of special programs that we have in that school, and again, the programming makes a difference in the number of students that you can actually have. So lots of variables going on. My takeaways for you, or what I suggest to be takeaways for you, is modest growth. It's when you want to hear that. You don't want to hear that your enrollment is declining from a funding standpoint especially, and you still have capacity in your school district, and you have a third variable, which is control of number of student transfers coming in, and your principals, as far as I'm concerned, do a masterful job of controlling their enrollment in their buildings, largely because of the bonus that we have of so many people that want to come to Silver Bowl schools.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this right, we're at the highest population ever. Is that
We
right?
are.
Yeah.
We are.
Okay. All right.
What's the capacity of the high school? I don't think I know that.
Again, that's a programmatic decision because It depends upon what the programs are, but when the building was constructed, based upon the programs that were assumed at the time, 1,400 students was the number that was used. However, schools, as an example, the old Silverton High School had a capacity of 950 students. We had almost 1,300 in there at one time. So 1,400 is a reference, but could we put more than that in there if we had to? Sure, we could.
Thank you.
Hey Andy, on Robert Frost, I noticed it says 2 kindergartners, 3 first graders. Is that special ed programs?
There.
Okay.
And I think I had one more thing on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
October Safety Awareness Month, we will have a repeat performance similar to last year with some improvements. We are putting on quite a campaign related to a variety of safety awareness matters, including drills and communication with parents and risk factors and a number of other things that you'll be seeing. School websites, social media, coming home with students with flyers. We have the Great Oregon Shakeout coming up in the middle of the month where all schools will be participating in a statewide earthquake drill. We've got lots of protective service activities, Marion County folks, Fire District folks, Clackamas County folks working with all of our schools this month just to do a variety of safety awareness things. I think it's a good activity for us to focus once a year on, well, we focus always on safety, but to take a month and designate it as Safety Awareness Month is pretty important.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, any questions?
Well, I would just recommend, Andy, that something I've noticed in the last year or two that's gotten significantly worse is so many young people do not know what side of the road to walk on. It is unbelievable how many kids will be walking with the traffic. Headphones in or hoods up. And, you know, I mean, I don't know where we've gone wrong with that. It's incredible.
Where mostly? I mean, I see them walking all over that between the high school and the middle school, just because I'm over there all the time. They're walking all over the place, just.
Well, I'm talking more out on the roads, you know,
Like just
rural
in
roads,
general.
and they'll just
Oh, I
be,
see.
yeah.
Or that's interesting you bring that up. We had a couple of presentations by Safe Routes to Schools folks for administrative retreat this summer, and that's exactly what one of the people stated is that students today have not had explicit training on, like, example, which side of the road walk on facing traffic. Part of that is because they're transported so frequently, I think is what she would say.
Nobody walks anymore.
Yeah, so that's fair. We'll, Derek McElfresh, our communications coordinator, oversees the efforts for School Safety Month, so I'll ask him to include.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I guess we already covered the strategic planning in the public forum, so we'll move on. Next up, financial report. Steve.
Hi, Tom. We have the financial statements through the month of September for you tonight. It's always a big month because includes our first payroll with all district personnel, with all the school year staff. So revenue-wise, in the general fund, we already received one-third of our state school fund payments, which always gets us off to a good healthy start on the revenue side. Then we've already received 25% of our total revenues. Property taxes will start kicking in towards the end of October and through November and early December. That's where we receive most of those receipts. Expense-wise, everything looks on track thus far after we've settled in with the start of the school year and gotten all the new employee information in and through insurance open enrollment. So we're looking okay there. Our total we received 25% of current resources and expended just over 14% of planned expenses, which doesn't include the contingency and unappropriated ending fund balance at the bottom there. We don't plan on spending that, so that's not part of my percentage there for planned expenditures. And then we also have the first look at the by school statement as well as the all funds, and we'll be taking a much closer look at the food service at the work session in 2 weeks, so we'll have more information on that. So.
Okay.
But obviously with the enrollment information that Andy has shared tonight, that from a financial standpoint, obviously, you know, I've always mentioned the kind of the big three factors to our general fund budget: enrollment, the state school funding amount, and if it will hold steady through the biennium with, you know, with the economy, and then PERS. So those are kind of the big three. And so, you know, in our district, we're definitely very blessed to have a stable or slightly growing enrollment. That's a huge deal. There's a lot of districts that have not had that for quite a long time. So that's always a nice starting point for us in conversations around budgeting. And so again, with the start of the school year, again, you know, have another 0.5% to 1% increase in October. That's always a nice thing to know going into the year. And obviously, we usually go through a little bit of a drop after the holidays, but again, we should still have enough there to where we would have an overall growth over the course of the year. So that's great.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody have any questions?
Were there any September surprises?
In terms of
Yeah, just anything out of the ordinary?
no. I would say the general fund is exactly where we would expect it to be at this point of the year, both on the revenue and the expense side.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, next up, the Bethany Charter School Annual Report. Kathy Frank, come on up.
Hi there. I'd like to thank you for having me here this evening. In your packet is the annual board report that is required. Very simplified. We take care of it. It goes to ODE. So first, if you have any questions on that, and then I'd like to celebrate a few exciting things at Bethany. So any questions on the packet or the report? I'll note that we do a lot of our goal setting off the results. So this year, I'm just going to go in. Never mind. This year, I try to be professional, but I'm always kind of ADHD, so I'll keep on track here. The test results inside have been continuously low in math, so we're pretty excited this year. We ordered a new math curriculum off the donors funding, the anonymous donor, and we had a pretty powerful conversation this afternoon on our early release meeting. And one of our excitements is that the verbal language is coming through. I've worked in too many years in a K-8 school without an aligned math curriculum. So we are so excited to take this new curriculum, and it's K-8, it's Go Math, and it's very driven towards Common Core, which a lot of people will roll their eyes at Common Core, but I'm pretty proud of the fact that kids have to apply it now. When I was teaching at Central Howell for many years, Wally, don't listen, I would literally skip the story problems because they wrang you dry. I mean, you were like, kids, can you get this? So I've been going into each classroom and watching the students now solve realistic math problems without the blood pressure rising. So we're really excited about the math, but we're gonna bump for about 4 years with how it will go. Teachers are pulling their hair out because it is all aligned verbal language now. Jennifer, you'd be impressed with that curriculum. And we hesitated on it because it's workbooks at the 7th, 8th grade level, very unique setting, but I went into the staff and I said, aha. They were kind of complaining about the workbooks. What are these 7th, 8th graders going to do with workbooks? It worked. I'm watching the kids because they actually have to solve according to using all the intense information that's in the questions, and it'll have it guided. You could tell I'm pretty excited about this because I watch these little 3rd, 4th graders right now, and they tell me, Mrs. Frank, this is algebra. We're doing algebra. And sure enough, so I can't retire for about 4 years, Andy, because I do want to see the process after it's in place. So that was one of my high points to share that I didn't include in the report, but when you look at the math results, we've struggled every year. We're in there, but we're not there enough. And when we're dealing with the K-8s, when I do tours and everything, I say, oh, I've got a few schools at Silverton that I'm always trying to compete against. So we're gonna try, because we try our hardest to get those scores up. So anyway, if you're interested, stop in, take a look at that new math curriculum. We've gone for years trying to adapt the Oregon Focus, which was written to the Oregon standards. So we tried the Common Core, tried to make that work, that you could supplement it. So we're going to get those math scores up, okay? That's the big point there. Second, I'm going with Jennifer a lot here, because Jennifer also asked last year if we could be a part of the SEL curriculum. So Jennifer, I thought that curriculum was what I sent a teacher to go to training through, the WESD. So we have a curriculum now, and I'd like to brainstorm a little bit about your curriculum and compare it to what we've landed upon. We were short on finances, and this came to us as a free SEL curriculum. Very excited to implement that this coming year with all the diversity, all the conversation around uniqueness, trying to work together, communicate that it's all right, getting kids to work with teammates without turning up their face. All this conversation piece is in this new curriculum, and it's called Sanford Harmony. So, in fact, the principal that was at Silverton High School was the fella that sent it out, and we happened to jump into that. So we're pretty excited. We're just gonna have a little training on that. The teacher that I sent is going to train the staff, and it's a K-6, but due to the fact we really haven't focused on much of the social emotional learning, we're going to stretch it and do K-8. So looking forward to kind of seeing the climate, the culture changes, and how that goes for Bethany, and how the kids can communicate. It's a difficult world right now, very difficult. We're even trying not to have cell phones on the campus, which was kind of a nasty statement back in the days where you're a technology school, but then you read about the social emotional piece and how kids aren't able to communicate and converse and feel. And so that's my second high point. My third high point is the facility. I kind of chuckled at Andy's. He's not really trained heavily on facility and how to, well, at Bethany, the briefcase is a wheelbarrow. You don't need a wheel. So I chuckled, and a lot of things ring a bell tonight as I'm sitting back here. So the facility, number one, we are excited about it. You've noticed we've kind of done some tear up around there to get a parking lot. I'll comment, we have not had one nasty phone call from a neighbor yet this year, so the parking lot is working. We're having a hard time getting the fence company to come give us a bid to put the fence in correctly, so we're at a standstill right now, but once that comes in, I'll want to hear about, I was researching fire zoning and all this stuff, so I've got some makeshift signs out there right now, hoping that that works. But it truly has been exciting to see the sport teams come, pull in, go around. They know where they could park. It's safe. They're off the road. That was the number one purpose on that, was safety. So with long-term planning, we had Mr. Slepkov here last year. I didn't want to talk heavy on that, but we're all excited about trying to get that facility. Our number one problem is breakout area, here, there. Our gym, we get scorns at when the teams have to come play, and the line's right on the wall. So just a lot of things coming up in the facility piece to look forward to hearing from Bethany, and we so appreciate, I have to add, we so appreciate the rental fee on there so that we can do that, because I agree with Shelley there. When we open up, I was chuckling again back there, trying to get into the facilities. I've been at Bethany for 14 years and found out recently there's a light inside of the whiteboard, so you can, you can go in and turn a light on. So that's kind of a neat thing, but we do have, a lot of plans for the facility, and we had Victor Madge come and do some long-term kind of planning to take a look at that piece, because every time we do something, we have to pull it out. There goes that little project to move this project, so thank you. We do want to say thank you for keeping us open, making it exciting, supporting us. Questions?
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
you went into your math scores and the changes you want to
Yes,
make, but your
yes.
science and social science scores are great.
Yes.
How do you achieve those?
Well, I'm going to say, because that was still Oaks testing, they have
Okay.
not gotten further, so we were proud of those. No big claim to fame on that one.
Okay.
That's just,
And how are the no cell? Tell me more about the no cell phones. Is that something you're doing all the time? I'm curious about
yes, it's very tricky, because, you read these studies, a technology school, and you're putting the phones in jail, basically, is what you're doing. So it was a hard bite for me. But it made a lot of sense as we thought about the kids, as soon as they get a break, as soon as they sneak to the restroom, it's like they have no interaction, looking at people, kind of doing, just communicating as humans. So they have every access for emergencies, every access as they exit, check in. And it really, I'm surprised. I thought I would be taking quite a few phone calls on that, but it went well. I mean, it's exciting. And we're hoping that the children don't end up with that hump here then, if we just give them 8 years without looking down and texting. It's hard enough to walk on the street the correct way, let alone text and walk. So it's been pleasant. Very.
How have the kids react?
Yeah.
You know what? They took it quite, I think it's kind of a relief. And I'll joke, because I was in the 7th, 8th grade, and one of the gals was using her calculator, and I said, oh, we don't text in here. Just kind of, and they just know, it's just been a common practice. They're not using them. Our restroom time usage is down. It's just amazing what it can do. But it does, you do fight with that philosophy. Well, yeah, they're every day. I know, we'll see.
Has there been a change in the behavioral issues? I mean, have you noticed, I don't know what kind of issues you had in the past, or if you did, but have you noticed a change in the temperament? How the kids participate in school with one another?
Nothing, well, participation, yes, but nothing with the temperament, but more, those kind of kids that feel security in their phone system. They're kind of forced now, pleasantly, to have to visit with their classmates. They're not sitting, especially that 7th, 8th grade. That just is the awkwardest time of your life, yet alone. So they're blending. They can't just sit at the garbage can out at recess, and so it's really, I think, going to just be more.
A little more inclusion as well.
Yes, thank you. That would be the word. They're not out there just on that phone device.
And when did you start this policy? First of the year?
First of the year, yes. And then our 7th and 8th graders, we do these BBNs, they're called, Bethany Broadcast News, and the children make videos with things that are occurring. Well, 7th and 8th grade did their BBN Friday, and it was service announcement about no phone usage. So those were quite hysterical. Let me tell you, they went around and interviewed the kids, and then they went to the secretary. She takes a phone, shh, I'm on the phone right now. Just kind of making fun of the whole thing. But they got it. I'm gonna knock on wood, hoping that, really, it's not.
And the parents were supportive.
Yes. Even the 10-year-old that just got a brand new cell phone for her birthday, it's going. Yeah.
So they bring them to school and they get put away.
Yes. And I have not had one in my desk yet. So we'll see.
Neat.
I was kind of ashamed of it, to be honest, but
Yeah.
it took a little bit of,
Good for you guys.
yes.
I
I think we ought to just watch them for a year and then consider.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we'll see, but
And the new pickup with your new car lens and stuff, and things
Yes.
are going well. I've been by there
you know,
during pickup time and stuff the other day.
it's actually very successful.
Good.
Yeah, it really is. They're
Looks
just,
really good.
yes, yeah. Well, we have a few parents, you know, on the stubborn side that would like to park in the bus lane, the fire lane, the front lane, but I sent the contractor out there to kind of talk to them about that first, because they're same ones, you know, they want to get their children first, but it's working really well, really well.
Parking there, but always parking there.
Yes, very good. And they can spin around. A little concerned about the bus. We want to work after the fence line gets in. Bus driver Mark has been a little concerned about the turn-in, the radius,
Yeah.
yes, of coming in. So taking a look at that after the fence line gets in. Okay?
All right, any more questions?
Yeah.
I have a quick question. In your general requirements, the very first bullet point, you said curriculum included mathematics, science, language skills, PE, band, choir, and general music, technology, computer skills, and was consistent with the charter and state law. Then it says band and, the third bullet point, band and choir was available this year for grades 5 through 8. And general music was included in the curriculum for grades K through 4. You implemented that just this year?
No,
correct?
this
Or
is-
has that been a part of your curriculum and your
Yeah.
environment there?
With the mission statement being enriched with art, PE, music, has to be, it just has to be in there. All funding really drives at that mission statement. And we have, in fact, Ms. Piper here, she substitutes once in a while for us. We just really, it's part of the program. It's every year written in.
And do a lot of, apparently since you have it, a lot of your students participate in that then?
Yes, they really do. And then they go on to the high school, and we've last year when they came, we had 2 in the top band from Bethany, which I was excited to see. They come in proud as can be, and Mr. Patrick says, "What school are you from?" And then "Toot-toot-toot-toot," and we all go crazy. So yes. And it's by 5th grade, they have to choose between, this is hard, this is another embarrassing moment, they have to choose between choir or band, and it's really painful. So we kind of let them play around a little bit, go to both classes, and then decide which one. And if the child is really driven and the parent is going to support, they're able to do both, just because of the way we do advanced band, beginning band, so they can also get in choir the 2 days a week. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate you explaining that.
Any more questions?
Kathy, I also wanted to compliment you on your kindergarten assessment results. It always amazes me when you look at the initial assessments and 2%, 3% in language arts, and 9% in math. End of the year, 97%, 91%. They're all high at the end of the year. So good job on that. That's very cool to see.
And I think that really, when all-day kindergarten, I kind of fought that at first because of the traditional environment. We had a lot of parents that could stay home, and then they weren't sure if they wanted to do all-day kindergarten, but it really turned out to help in the long run.
Makes such a
Yes, yes,
more times.
yes.
Good report.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Okay, Jamie McCarty is out sick, so we're not going to hear about Victor Point or Evergreen tonight. He'll report at some other meeting. Okay, next up, the board report about educational equity. Jennifer and I visited for about half an hour. We've been working on this a while to try to come up with just a statement to start with. I know I struggled with it a lot, trying to find out, there's so much information out there about what equity is, and whenever I look at it on the internet, it's pages and pages and pages of kind of a word salads is kind of what and trying to boil it down into something that makes sense for us was really hard for me. I know in a lot of the document, Jennifer did a great job of boiling this down. She's been listening a lot. In my opinion, she did a great job. She came out with this, and every time I was trying to write something down or get my mind around, I would get angry because I felt it embedded in so many of the statements, and the stuff I would find was kind of an accusation of you're doing something wrong or you're bad. And Jennifer really did a good job of. She came up with this, and then I kind of wordsmithed it a bit. I visited with Andy a bit, and he may have some suggestions too, along with the rest of us. But this is Jennifer, just jump in anytime if you need to correct anything. But this is kind of what we would start with. I think both of us kind of had a vision that it would fit within our new strategic visioning plan, kind of half a page or something. So we would like it have a definition and then a few aspirational points below it. There's more to it than what you read here, but I felt let's just start with this and see what the rest of the board felt. Does that kind of capture things pretty good?
I will say that I added the word vision to the title there, because that when I typed it up, because you authorized me to type it up and send it to Andy, it felt, I don't know, like it was more aspirational and kind of like a vision, and so I just added that just as a point of discussion.
Yeah, like one of the statements that I it wasn't in this vision, but in some of the statements you kind of the bullet points we were going to add, like one of them that was in there, and it's a common thing is to break down barriers and things like that, and that word always bothered me, barriers. We had a good discussion about it, and I know that we didn't add any of those statements in here, but I changed it to hurdles, because a barrier is something that's in your way. Somebody put it there maybe, and you got to break that down. Whereas a hurdle is something you can get over. We can help a kid get over it, and we can teach a kid to learn to get over hurdles, and then you learn those habits, and you're getting over hurdles the rest of your life, like we all are. And so that's kind of where I see the rest of this going. But I'd like to see something that fits in our new visioning plan, and just kind of becomes part of this. I don't know. Any further thoughts?
No, I thought the hurdle was a great metaphor for talking about equity and what we can do. We can't do everything. Clearly, we have limited resources, but when we are planning, programming, etc., thinking about those hurdles and making an effort to find out what those hurdles are, because we don't even know.
Right.
So I think that's a great metaphor.
Yeah. And I guess, I guess, Andy, did you have any input on some other words, or anybody else, I guess, I guess let's open to the board first. What do you guys got any input or thoughts?
Well, one of the things that struck me, and I think, Jennifer, you changed the word vision. This is as you said, it's sort of a vision of what we wanted to do for us. But it's not so much what it is. And I'm wondering if before we can describe what we want something to do for us, do we first have to describe what it is? Right? I don't know. It feels like I get the idea that this is part of a vision, and I think the statement as it reads is certainly worthy of support. I just don't know that it helps me to know what it is when we use the word equity. But I don't. Maybe that was my struggle, right? I still don't think it helped us define it.
Well, yeah, and that is something that you notice. It says equitable practices.
Right.
And that made it easier to write, in my opinion. But I may think that your comment probably points to the idea how it is difficult to, to come up with something that we can all agree on. And so you grabbed your definition, or the definition from the training before the meeting started. Did you have any ideas based on that?
I think, in all honesty, the one that I grabbed, and I guess if everybody else...
Nobody can see it.
Yeah. I'll read it. It's not very long. For us, equity means each learner and community has the opportunity to succeed. We believe culture and diversity are assets for our communities that are to be respected for their multiple perspectives on learning, definitions of success, and pathways for self-determination. Accomplishing this equity priority, however, requires collective and coherent action to increase system effectiveness and produce results that are not predictable by race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. And I like that. I like a lot of things in it. I don't know that, I would say that has to be it, but there are some things I really like. One, I really like the idea that it talks about culture, diversity, and communities, all three things that I value, right? And the other thing that it talks about are that the results become not predictable by race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. That'd be fantastic as well. I mean, it's interesting points in it. I don't know that that's a definition either, right? So as I read it, I don't know that that helps me understand exactly where we're going with these. I think these are all great. We had a bunch of them, right? But
maybe we're making a mistake in saying that we have to have an equity definition. Maybe we just need to have an equity statement.
right.
These are equity statements. That's an equity statement. Maybe that's just we just need to get off of that term possibly. Andy, I can't. Is it the state or the feds that are requiring an equity statement?
We need to have indicators of equity within our school improvement efforts as required by the state, but it's actually part of the Elementary Secondary, Schools Act, so ESSA, does have requirements related to equity. And we have to demonstrate as a school district just in a variety of ways, statements of equity that we can demonstrate, whether it be in any of our programs, special education, general population, we have to demonstrate that we're providing equitable opportunities for all of our students. So that's an interesting concept, statement versus a definition. Maybe that's just a semantic change that might be easier to understand.
It just gets us off the dime.
It does, yeah. And I think actually this is a very good exercise, if I could editorialize just a second, for you as a board. Our board hasn't worked through this process in the past, and I think having that conversation now is exactly what needs to occur. And just as a friendly reminder, John Linson, when he presented to you, also said it's an ongoing process, but it's a process that is really expected to cause you to experience some differences of opinion, even going as far as saying experience discomfort. That it's something that should be part of the process. There is no easy solution here, and I truly believe that this board will come up with an equity definition or statement and some belief statements as well. But I think it's going to take you a little time, because clearly there are some things that need to be vetted. You are fortunate that you have the strategic planning effort this year. I'm going to encourage you to take this information to lean on Jerry Colonna a little bit, who is very good at his craft. And could also help you incorporate this information into your plan.
I think that's where it belongs. I think it belongs in the plan. We're always referencing this document. We're handing it out. People are coming through it. It's something that people see a lot. So it needs to be embedded in there in a wordsmith down so it's easily digestible. It makes sense to
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say first of all, to Jennifer and Tom, thank you so much for spending so much time to try to make something that's so broad and vast into a short, succinct statement is incredibly difficult, and I understand that. So thank you, and I appreciate the effort that you've done. And I do like the fact that maybe we're trying to come up with maybe not a bullet point, but something that exemplifies Silver Falls School District. Something that we know that says this is us, that identifies with the district within one statement. And I think we can do that. It's going to be a little difficult. It's going to take some time and some creative thought and some engagement. But I think it's something that's well worth the undertaking. You know, it's something that's going to be powerful, that captures the imagination. But what you've done, I like the path that we're on with what we're trying to achieve with here. And then the information and what Jonathan, you read, I mean, there was a lot in that statement. But I would like to see something that's going to be kind of short and concise and to the point, and something that we all can own.
So one thing I'd like to chime in here on is I like the idea of changing it to a statement. I think that psychologically changes the entire way we can think about it. Because when we think about definition, you know, it's hard to define things sometimes, but when we say statement, we're like, oh, well, that seems a little easier, and sometimes it opens the mind a little bit, you know, to be able to make a statement instead of defining something. But I think behind the curtain it is a definition to a certain degree. But this particular statement, vision, is, I think it's great. I wanted to piggyback on when Jennifer said, I underlined practices. In the Silver Falls School District, equitable practices increase student achievement. And then Jonathan's, what he read, and the statement that I picked last time, I think kind of piggybacks on what those practices could be, because we do have to change practices, and then giving a little bit of specificity to those practices might help make the statement or definition a little more clear and a little more easier to implement. So I'll read mine too, just because it's, thank you, Richard, and it was helpful. Mine was authentically striving for equity requires interruption of current thinking systems, and constructs, as well as behaviors. So the reason I like this one is because it has an interruption. I'm not sure that interruption is the correct word for something in our statement. I think that's too, bold. But current thinking, systems, and constructs and behaviors. Those are words that I think could be a potential part of the statement. Can I reach for yours too?
Yeah.
In conjunction with, produces results. Requires collective and coherent action. What are those actions? To increase effectiveness and produce results that are not predictable by race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. So I think a variety of cherry picking of words from what we liked as a board from each one of our statements, I think it might help us narrow down a potential statement to have. It might make the process a little easier for us to agree upon. So what I'd like to see is what kind of practices, what that means. And we can say equitable practices, but what does that mean? That's my question. So anyway, I think these were important that each one of us had one. And I think that since each one of us picked one of these, that was important to each one of us. And I think that each one of us can contribute a couple of cherry-picked words out of that and combine it and make it a great statement. So everybody's contributing. So that's my thought.
Yeah.
So Jonathan asked, where are we going with this? And I just wanted to kind of check in with everybody. To me, when we got done with our training, one of the key ideas that I walked away with is that if we came up with an equity lens or a policy or whatever, the main goal was to have a conversation around the idea of increasing achievement for everyone at the same time eliminating the gaps. And so it was about conversations that the system has in order to, before moving forward, just making sure that the conversation happens. Not predicting the outcome of that conversation, but just making sure that that conversation happens. So I hope that I'm not off
No,
on
I think that sounds
that.
good.
And Andy, is there any reason why we can't change this once a year, or?
You can revisit this anytime you like.
And I think
As
that
board.
would be helpful, that way we don't feel so pressured it has to be perfect and just, you know. And
Well, and that's why I thought the idea of each one, the one that we picked out of all of that stack, something resonated with the one that you picked. And I think that that's important to contribute to, the process of creating the statement. Because something happened when you read one of those papers, and that's why you picked it. And so I just thought, well, maybe it might be helpful.
Well,
You
we
know,
picked
for
it
that
because
stuff.
that's what was given to us, that was
Right.
made available. But
Right.
there's more than just that.
I know.
And I think one
I know
of
that.
my concerns would be,
Mhm.
the power is in a
Mhm.
statement that's going to be short and somewhat succinct. We're not creating policy. So I'd like to be careful in that if we're putting too much into the statement, too many words, now we're looking at creating a new policy where we're trying to capture imagination, vision, focus, and something that's going to resonate with everyone. So
Exactly.
we don't have to stop with just the statements that were provided, but we can all start thinking on our own and then reconvene with this. But I think it's important to keep it short.
You're right. And I was just offering an idea to help each one of us to have that conversation ourselves. And to start with the statement is something I would give my students if I was teaching. I
But
would
not
say
be limited
here,
just to that.
no, not limited, no, here, let's start with this. And let's discuss it, let's think about it, and let's work on it, and what can you add to this? So that's just a start. Because, Tom said it's vast. He looked at it, he Googled it, and it's just endless. So you have to bring the scope in and start somewhere in your brain and say, okay, I like that, and those are good words, and Tim's ones are good words. That's a good start. So that's all I was saying. But-
So how many interactions are we going to have with Jerry from here going forward before we have a new document to kind of help get a timeline and help us see if, to boil this down?
Well, you'll have at least 2 or 3
Yeah.
interactions, if not more.
Right.
I think it partially depends upon what information he obtains from
Right.
focus groups and community forums and what information he gets to evolve with that. I think it's also important to, you surely reinvent the wheel, but you have a strategic planning document that even you yourself, and I know Jerry commented on this as well, has a number of equity references in it. In other words, it's a document that demonstrates how we approach equity in the school district. So that may be a document, and that process may be a process, Tom, I think that's where you're going with this, that you may want to lean on to
Yeah.
help you really come up with this statement.
Right, yeah, looking for some,
Right.
so someone to help, who can listen to all this going back and forth and help us to narrow it down and get to where we want to be.
Even your mission statement, on the back of your placards,
Yeah,
is in many ways a statement of equity. It talks about every student, every day,
Yeah.
character and academic growth.
Right.
And so when you think about how we function as a school district and those equitable practices that are in place right now, well, I think we do a better job defining what some of those are. The reality is there are many in place. And
Yeah, I'll get in touch with, when I get in touch with Jerry and try to help us whittle it down, and maybe Jennifer and I can visit with him, and John, who was the fellow, the guy who did the equity training.
John Lason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just try to help get some advice from them and meld that into our visioning statement and help narrow this in.
And so last we left this
Yes.
at training, I think, was that the idea is that we were trying to come up with a definition and then belief statements. And so Tom and I thought that, and with discussion from you, that we'd come back with something that was overarching that people could probably agree with, maybe, and then add more later. So that's where we were kind of at in the process. We stopped because we wanted to make sure that we were on the right track.
Yeah. Right, so we want to come back with some more details.
Well, that's where we left it at.
That's where we left.
At the end of the equity training, I think, so.
Right. Right, so let's try and do that. Let's try and get some guidance from John and Jerry and see if we can roll that into our new visioning statement.
I like the idea of it being in the visioning statement. I think it's
Well, and he can help narrow us down. I mean, he's seen these boards struggle with this, and he might be able to help get us into something that works.
Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay. What is next up? Let's see. Now it's time for our second public comment portion. Limited to discussion and action items. Anybody like to come up and address the board? Yes, sir.
Sarah Weitzman. I didn't sign in tonight because I wasn't going to talk. I just wanted to make a quick, first of all, thank you, Tom, for keeping second audience with visitors on the agenda. And I just wanted to make a quick observation about the last conversation that you had as a public member in the audience. Was a tiny bit confusing with the statements not being read or available to us in the back or anything like that. So maybe if it could be put on board book or something, or how you're working with this, or what some of those statements were that you were referencing, would have been helpful for us trying to follow along with what you're doing. But I also wanted to thank you for your work on the equity thing, but I wanted to remind you also that whenever that was, I don't remember, but Mr. Blando had a committee with staff members and teachers that worked really hard on equity, and I hope that you won't forget to use that as a resource and a tool as you go through this process, because they worked hard, and I personally thought that this policy or statement or vision that they wrote earlier had a lot of great things in it. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to comment that somebody reached out to me and also suggested that because there was an original group that came up with a policy about a year ago, and we want to honor that work, I think. And so maybe at some point we can join up in somehow, I don't know what form that would be, but I like the idea of catching up and looping everybody together.
They started the discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that, so I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and it's probably, we probably didn't have board book up and running, I'm not sure. But
Andy, can you just, is that something you can forward to us?
The policy?
Yeah.
The proposed policy?
Forward all the product that, to all of us for a refresher, we can all come up with it, but Jonathan needs it too.
You bet.
He doesn't have it, so.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else?
Maybe that the document that the teachers and staff worked on could be a part of the discussion with you guys, with John Hanson. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
I don't know,
well, we can.
It just helps.
It's good to refresh us, yeah. Yeah,
yeah. You know, I don't know, just, and
I
I
remember-
think that would be a good way to honor the teachers and staff
Sure,
that
sure.
worked on it, so.
And is that group still meeting, Andy?
No, I mean, everything was put on hold
Put on hold.
until the board gives some additional direction.
Yeah.
Because I do think that the idea of equity, everything I've heard, is that it's a process that has to take place at, many levels to understand what equity is, and so hopefully eventually that continues.
Yeah.
I think one thing too that's important to remember in all this equity discussion is, of course we can do better at all our things, but there's also when I come into a discussion like this, I always, just my own personal thing is like, oh, this is something we need to fix. And this is something we need to, you know, it's, sometimes it can come across to me anyway, it's kind of a negative thing, that this is something we need to fix, but I think it's important to remember, for me anyway, it's important to remember that a lot of this, the equity stuff is things we're already doing in our classrooms every day. And we already do a lot of things really right in this district. And that's not saying that we can't do things, a lot of things better too. But I mean, we had a perfect example of, at Bethany, the kindergarten assessment results that they had in their report. I mean, kids started out the year anywhere, like in language arts, anywhere from 2% to 81%. So obviously those kids are coming from different backgrounds and different places. But at the end of the year, they all end up around 97, 98%. So that's, I mean, to me, that's a great example of equity and things that we're doing right to get those kids who obviously come from different backgrounds all in the same place. So, and I'm not discounting any of this because it's important to come up with a statement or whatever, but it's also, we can't forget that we're already doing a lot of this, and it's not something we're necessarily trying to fix. It's just something that we're going to add to make what we do better.
Yeah, that's...
I'm not real sure what I'm trying to say.
Well, sorry, that's what I've struggled with, because it feels like there's an accusation there.
Yeah,
in the fact
and
that you have
it's
to be able to
not.
fix something, and as we had these discussion with our consultants coming through, we bring up this, and they go, oh yeah, that's equity, you're doing that, you're doing it. They keep bringing up these things, and we're like,
yeah, I mean,
it ain't really broken, we need to fine tune it, we need to do better, but there's a lot of things.
I've been doing this for a long time, and I know, we've gotten nothing, we've just gotten better.
Our staff does Our staff
does an amazing job.
So Tim, would you say this is more of an enhancement?
I'm not sure. I think, yeah, but I'm just a little confused about it all, and I just wanted to throw that out there, that not that we can't do better and with a lot of this stuff, but a lot of this stuff is being done every day in this district.
That's a good point.
Okay, more discussion. Okay, very good. Okay, well, all right, now we will adjourn to executive session under ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Thank you. Okay, let's return to regular session.